I think we'll now invite Professor Tony Simons, the Director General of ECRAF, World Agroforestry Center, to offer his closing remarks.
Thanks very much, Peter, and thanks very much to our colleagues in Bogor, both the organizers and our remote speakers in Australia and Norway and Italy and Czechoslovakia and other countries in the world. A fascinating 2-day symposium, really, on the linkages between forest and water. And much of it framed in the climate debate. And we've struggled for decades of trying to say, well, let's make the forest be worth more than its carbon. And I think what has been presented over the last few days gives us a lot of hope that maybe water is going to be one of those key elements that reinforces the real value of forests. If you ask for one point in summary about these 2 days, I think it would be that there's been some very clouded thinking. And to the presenters, please take that as a compliment. Because this ability of vegetation, particularly perennial vegetation trees, to pump water, both from hydraulic lift and also the biotic pump that Doug spoke about, is really fascinating. I've learned a lot in the last 2 days, listening to these and checking various facts in Google about it. I think another staggering point that came across is just how many missing elements there are in our various climatic models in relation to water, in relation to temperature, in relation to the presence and role of trees. And yet we take those models as granted, and why aren't politicians listening to them? And our role as scientists is to continue to build the evidence, continue to test the theory, continue to push to find explanations that change human challenges and problems. And I think these couple of days have been fantastic, and I applaud the organizers really for helping frame it and distill it very much for us. A little bit was mentioned about the difference between the price, the cost, and the value of water. And how much water you pay per cubic meter in your country, if it's through a municipal tap, versus how much it's worth if it's blue water in your river or your irrigation canal, or if you're collecting it off a rainwater harvesting roof, or if it's your vegetation that is helping collect it in the soil and recycle it for us. For a number of years, there were big debates about where the water on the world came from. And there's kind of two theories. One is, well, it must have come from inside the Earth. After the Earth was formed, that's where it came from. Or it must be a whole lot of bunch of comets and asteroids that arrived with little payloads of ice on them and dropped it off on the surface as they collided with us. And the jury is still out on that, but there is more of a favor that it came from inside the Earth. And it's not, luckily for us, that it's not leaking to the atmosphere, because clouds are at such a low altitude that we don't lose it, because we have this fantastic gravity. But we're losing, it seems, not losing the water, but we're losing the functionality of it. And we're losing the functionality of it because we're losing the forest. And driving those functions, and not just the ecological functions. And you know, perhaps it was a shame that we didn't have more on the human, the livelihood implications of a lot of the work that was discussed here today. So perhaps that's the challenge for the next iteration of the seminar on how it affects people's livelihoods and people's access, availability, their rights to use water. Because we know a lot about those very linear watershed relationships where downstream users get put out. But these teleconnections show that, you know, there is that role for international understanding and policy making. You know, Gabon has 87% forest cover. American Samoa has 95% forest cover. Do they need that level of forest cover for their societies? No. But the world needs it. The world needs it as a carbon sink, and the world needs it as these biotic pumps and drivers of beneficial precipitation. So if the world needs it, the world has to pay for it. The world has to provide for it. The world has to be accountable for it. And that strengthens the idea that maybe, carbon has tried fighting on its own to help protect forests, and it hasn't worked. With forests and carbon and the human and other ecological dimensions, maybe it's not just about payment for services, but it's real valuation of understanding those. Whether people decide to accept those values is neither here nor there. I mean, obviously a lot of the work of CIFOR and FTA partners and ICRAF is around tropical forests and in many places rainforests. And it's kind of, that should be a little bit of a clue in the title there, a rainforest. Yeah? So it's a forest that generates rain, and it's a forest that receives a lot of rain. And what we've seen from a lot of the presentations today is that there is a link. Anyone in Bogor or Nairobi got the best definition for us of what is a rainforest? We're all experts. It's our field. We should know about it. It's the topic of this seminar. So go to Google and find out your own nice favorite definition of what a rainforest is, and whether that's the minimum number of months that doesn't receive 100 millimeters of rainfall, or the lowest threshold being 2.5 meters of rainfall a year. Come up with it, because we need to be able to champion rainforests, and that's every single tree, not just those that occur in our classic rainforests. So just with those few closing remarks, again, like to thank you. Although it's only been 6 hours of presentations, it's been tremendous effort by the planners, the conveners, the moderators, the presenters, and others. And I look forward to discussing with our staff in ICRAF and also with our FTA partners on how we take this forward and mainstream and challenge ourselves more in our own individual project agendas and the center agendas and in these CGR research programs. Thanks very much for being part of what has truly been a fantastic event, and can we show our deepest appreciation to the organizers, the speakers and conveners behind this. Thanks very much.